The story of Japan's economic transformation from the ashes of World War II to becoming the world's second-largest economy is one of the most remarkable chapters in modern economic history. In August 1945, Japan lay in ruins. American bombing campaigns had destroyed approximately 40% of the urban areas in 66 major cities. Tokyo, Osaka, and other industrial centers were reduced to rubble. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki had killed hundreds of thousands, and the country's industrial capacity had been decimated. Factories were destroyed, the transportation network was in shambles, and millions of Japanese citizens faced starvation. The per capita income was roughly 1/8 that of the United States, and many observers believed it would take generations for Japan to recover, if it ever could. The country that had once harbored imperial ambitions now faced an uncertain future under American occupation, with its economy shattered and its people struggling to survive day by day. The foundation for Japan's miraculous recovery began during the American occupation under General Douglas MacArthur, which lasted from 1945 to 1952. The occupation forces implemented sweeping reforms that would prove crucial to Japan's future success. Land reform broke up the old feudal agricultural system, distributing land to millions of tenant farmers and creating a more equitable rural economy. The zaibatsu, the powerful family-controlled business conglomerates that had dominated the pre-war economy, were initially targeted for dissolution, though this policy was later softened as the Cold War intensified. Labor unions were legalized and encouraged, giving workers new rights and bargaining power. Women were granted the right to vote and democratic institutions were established. Perhaps most importantly, Article 9 of the new constitution renounced war and severely limited military spending, which would later allow Japan to channel resources into economic development rather than defense. The American occupation also provided crucial economic assistance and helped stabilize the devastated economy, though the amounts were relatively modest compared to what Europe received under the Marshall Plan. The turning point for Japan's economic fortunes came with the outbreak of the Korean War in 1950. The conflict transformed Japan from a defeated enemy into a crucial American ally and staging ground. The United States military placed massive orders for supplies, equipment, vehicles, and services from Japanese companies, pumping billions of dollars into the economy. This Korean War boom provided Japanese industries with desperately needed capital, technology access, and production experience. Factories that had been idle or destroyed were rebuilt and modernized. The textile industry expanded rapidly to provide uniforms and supplies. Steel production surged to meet military demands. This special procurement by the American military is estimated to have brought in nearly $4 billion between 1950 and 1953, giving Japanese industry the jumpstart it needed. Companies gained valuable experience in quality control and modern manufacturing techniques, while American technical advisors helped transfer knowledge and best practices. During the 1950s, Japan embarked on an ambitious industrialization strategy that prioritized heavy industries and manufacturing. The government, particularly through the powerful Ministry of International Trade and Industry, known as MITI, played an active role in guiding economic development. Rather than leaving everything to market forces, Japanese policymakers carefully selected strategic industries for development and provided them with support through targeted loans, tax breaks, import restrictions, and coordinated planning. The steel industry was rebuilt and expanded with the latest technology. Shipbuilding became a national priority, and by the end of the 1950s, Japan had become the world's largest shipbuilder. The chemical and petrochemical industries were developed to reduce dependence on imports. This period saw the emergence of what would later be called Japan Incorporated, a close partnership between government bureaucrats, politicians, and business leaders who worked together to achieve national economic goals. The Bank of Japan and major commercial banks funneled savings into strategic industries at favorable interest rates, while protective tariffs shielded developing industries from foreign competition. The Japanese economic model that emerged during this period had several distinctive characteristics that contributed to its success. Companies prioritized long-term growth and market share over short-term profits, allowing them to invest heavily in research, development, and expansion. The practice of lifetime employment at major corporations created loyal, skilled workforces and encouraged companies to invest in employee training. Enterprise unions, organized within individual companies rather than across industries, promoted labor management cooperation and flexibility. The keiretsu system, which replaced the pre-war zaibatsu, created networks of companies with cross-shareholdings and close business relationships, providing stability and facilitating long-term planning. A high savings rate among Japanese households, encouraged by limited social security and cultural factors, provided abundant capital for investment. The government maintained an undervalued yen, making Japanese exports highly competitive in international markets. Education was emphasized at all levels, creating a highly literate and technically skilled workforce that could master and improve upon foreign technologies. The 1960s marked Japan's emergence as a major economic power. Prime Minister Hayato Ikeda announced his ambitious income doubling plan in 1960, setting a goal to double the national income within 10 years. Remarkably, this goal was achieved in just 7 years. The decade saw annual growth rates that frequently exceeded 10%, a pace that astounded economists worldwide. Japanese companies moved aggressively into new industries and markets. The automobile industry, which had been relatively small, expanded rapidly. Toyota, Nissan, and other manufacturers refined production techniques, with Toyota developing the famous just-in-time manufacturing system that would later be studied and copied worldwide. Consumer electronics became a major export sector, with companies like Sony, Panasonic, and Toshiba establishing global brands. The 1964 Tokyo Olympics served as a coming-out party for the new Japan, showcasing the country's recovery and modernity to the world. The bullet train, or Shinkansen, which began service that same year, became a symbol of Japanese technological prowess and efficiency. Infrastructure investment was massive, with new highways, ports, and industrial facilities being built at a breakneck pace. The 1970s brought new challenges but also confirmed Japan's status as an economic superpower. The Nixon shock of 1971, when the United States abandoned the gold standard and the Bretton Woods system collapsed, forced a revaluation of the yen and threatened Japanese export competitiveness. The oil crisis of 1973, when OPEC imposed an oil embargo and prices quadrupled, hit Japan particularly hard because the country imported virtually all of its petroleum. However, Japanese companies and policymakers responded with remarkable agility. Industries shifted toward less energy-intensive production and developed energy-efficient technologies. Companies doubled down on quality and innovation to maintain their competitive edge despite the stronger yen. The economic growth rate slowed from the double-digit rates of the 1960s, but Japan continued to grow faster than other developed economies. Japanese companies became increasingly dominant in industries like automobiles, electronics, cameras, watches, and machine tools. By the late 1970s, made in Japan, which had once been associated with cheap, low-quality goods, had become synonymous with quality, reliability, and value. The results of this 3-decade transformation were nothing short of extraordinary. Japan's gross domestic product grew at an average annual rate of nearly 10% during the 1960s and remained strong through the 1970s. In 1968, Japan surpassed West Germany to become the world's second-largest economy, a position it would hold until being overtaken by China in 2010. Per capita income, which had been desperately low in 1945, had reached levels comparable to Western Europe by the 1970s. Unemployment remained remarkably low, typically under 2%. The trade surplus grew steadily as Japanese exports flooded world markets. Major Japanese corporations became household names around the globe. The country that had imported virtually all of its technology in 1950 was now at the cutting edge of innovation in multiple fields. Social indicators also improved dramatically, with life expectancy becoming the highest in the world, infant mortality dropping to among the lowest, and literacy remaining near universal. The Japanese middle class expanded to encompass the vast majority of the population, creating a society that was remarkably equal in terms of income distribution compared to other developed nations. The success of Japan's economic miracle had profound implications that extended far beyond the country's borders. Japan became a model for other Asian economies, with South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and later China studying and adapting elements of the Japanese approach to state-guided capitalist development. Japanese management techniques and manufacturing methods, particularly quality control practices and lean production systems, were studied and adopted by companies worldwide.